Good morning, Reed here, back at Orchestra Farm. Thanks for joining me today. To all the new subscribers out there, I want to say hi and welcome. And, we had a bit of a storm here in Salt Spring a couple of nights ago, and out on the Pacific coast, because we're cradled by Vancouver Island. Wow, that did have an effect there. Let's just take a peek at the distance. You see that black cloth that's up on the greenhouse frame there? Yeah, that was the wind. So we got a lot of wind was the thing, but it wasn't that much compared to Vancouver Island. And one of our landmates asked, how ready are you for a power outage? And different people were like, oh yeah, we're good for a power outage. And I was like, I don't understand the question. On the basis of, for how long are you good for a power outage? Are you good for a couple hours? Are you good for a day? Are you good for a week? Are you good for a month? Longer than that? And it's this interesting thing of, without our current points of, access to supplies and electricity and all these things, like, how far into the future are you good? That's actually how I view sustainability. It's not, am I sustainable? Am I purchasing all these things that are like sustainable things? It's really a question of like, how far into the future are you good? So there's this farm here, and part of why I do that is because I like having super fresh food, like I've spoken of in the past. And there's a piece with that where when I have all these winter squash from this field space here, there's more than we can eat. Like, you'd have to just be non-stop eating squash for like every meal, which gets a little boring, frankly, to come, frankly, not even come close to eating it all in the winter. So we have to get rid of squashes, which is fine. And then, but the notion with that is, okay, I am self-sufficient with squash for, let's say, 6 months. Okay, that's a great little time quantity to understand. When we've grown potatoes in the past, we've got 6 months worth of potatoes. So, we are good in that realm. Now, I have a small generator. I have a little bit of fuel saved. I'll probably get through 3 days worth of running that generator to, for instance, keep my freezers going. And if it's actually cold enough, instead I could use it for my refrigerator. And, then all the food that's in there is saved for that much time. But then I got to start using it, So even if I have 6 months worth of food in my freezers, I actually only have 3 days worth of food in my freezers if I can't keep the freezers running. And you can actually assess every part of your life from this context. And then you can build up systems of resilience for each of these different areas based on how you prioritize what things and how reliant on what systems you want to be to deal with everything. Oh no, this is fascinating. I got this pretty good size fir branch in here. The trees are kind of far away. Huh. That was more wind than I saw the other day. Anyway. But it's an interesting question of when someone asks you, are you ready for a power outage? Are you prepared to lose your job? Are you prepared for someone in your family being sick? For how long? And one of the things I like about fruit trees or the berries that are there is they're a perennial system. So unlike the things like the squash or the potatoes, which are annual systems, where you have to plant them every year basically. Now potatoes, you might get away with saying, Reed, I don't need to plant potatoes every year. I've done that, and you know what happens? They grow back the next year. Okay, sure, there's a layer of truth to that, but not to the same degree, right? And squash is definitely not the case, although I've heard from some people that have them like on the outer edges of their property that they just kind of set out there, that they will grow back. So I'm looking to see that at some point in my life, but it's not this year. And with a perennial system, you have year after year after year of potential bounty that comes from that. And I mentioned the other day looking into investing and Bitcoin, and this notion of like, when you properly invest, then your money is working for you. It kind of becomes a perennial system if you work it really well. And the more systems that we can create as a perennial system, the better off we are in the long run, rather than all these annual systems or like, on time delivery of things where we're really not ready for any number of potential hazards that can occur in life. To which I hope we've all realized since the 2020s that there's lots of different hazards that can occur in life. And societally, it doesn't seem like we're ready for most of them. And so the other piece that comes up with this, like, for how long are you good for the power coming out, is not just for yourself, but for those around you. It's funny to hear about people who watch like zombie related stuff. I'm not interested in that, and I'm really cutting back on the shows I'm watching these days as it is. And this piece of like, some people I've heard talking about the notion that, oh, I'm not going to grow a garden because people will come and take it. I've never actually heard anyone say that. And, security is certainly a thing that we could each work on in our own way for ourselves, and ought to be part of our plan of securing us for the future. But I see that as a silly option. And the notion of, this year, as in 2025, when I do this project of Orchestra Farm, I'm actually planning on just giving away that excess. Like I talked about earlier, there's all that squash, we can't even eat it all. And it's the kind of thing that the money that I could get from selling it and the effort that goes into selling it is not actually worth it. But the goodwill that can come from giving it to people and the social credit that can build, that can actually turn into a perennial system. And the goodwill that we can create with others in our life can be one of the more valuable things that we have. So even when I think of like the power going out, it's what are the systems of reliance that we're currently using that if the power goes out and those systems aren't functioning, how do we collectively care for each other? Now that's obviously a bigger question than I have time for today, but that's a question I want to leave you with, is how are you creating those systems of resiliency, not only for your own self, but for the people around you? With that, I want to say thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing. You can check out my music in the link of this video, where it's at bendingreeds.bandcamp.com. I've got some new music that'll be coming out in the next week or so. Although by the time you get this video, it's probably out already. So go check that out. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Have too much fun.